so far in our story that God is writing a story unlike any other. God created it all, he made it all good, and he promised us a solution to our biggest problem, sin and death, by offering the promise of the offspring of the woman who would crush the serpent's head. We followed it through Cain and Abel to Seth, through Noah and Shem, to Abraham and Isaac, not Ishmael, Jacob, not Esau, Judah, not Joseph, and now Moses went back to his brothers because he was his brother's keeper. Keeps them alive, brings them out of captivity under the blood of the Lamb in unity and harmony with their God at Mount Sinai. Now we see how they do with living up to their end of that covenant. As we get to the end of Exodus, Israel has come out of captivity to Egypt under the blood of the Lamb into unity and harmony with their God, where God gives them a covenant at Mount Sinai, which they instantly break. You see, God's been on an eternal mission to reconcile all things, including the Jews, but not just them, to reconcile all things to himself, so that there'll be worshipers from everywhere gathered around the throne of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So when we get to Leviticus, we see that it is really, you can summarize it in a sentence. Israel needs a sacrifice. Really, it's pointing towards the ultimate sacrifice. But Israel needs a sacrifice. The book of Numbers is following the family tree of Jacob or Israel, specifically the family of Judah, because we're looking for the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Deuteronomy has kind of two purposes. Number one, the second giving of the law. And then number two, Israel was supposed to take the promised land. Remember, Abraham had three promises, many children in a special land, and then one child who will bless the world. Well, they were supposed to take that special land. They disobeyed, so God, as punishment, makes them wander around the wilderness for 40 years, and we have that story. Then we turn the page to Joshua. Moses has died, Joshua replaces him as the leader, and Joshua is going to lead the people into the promised land. The first city they come to is this place called Jericho. They send in a couple of spies who end up being found out by the police. The police come to arrest them, and they're hidden from the police by a lady named Rahab. She is a prostitute. She spares their life, acts as her brother's keeper, and says, when you conquer the city, will you spare my life because I've spared yours? They say, yes, we will. Israel comes and conquers Jericho, and they save Rahab and her family. Rahab actually marries a guy named Salmon. He's a Jew. He's from the family of Judah. That's interesting. And they have a son named Boaz. Hold on to that name. It's going to come back in just a minute. An interesting side story here is that during the conquest, Joshua is met by an angel. Always a little unique whenever that happens. And Joshua doesn't realize it's an angel, and he says, are you for us or against us? And the angel says, neither. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that this story isn't about Israel conquering Canaan. It's not about that. This is about God on a mission to reconcile people from Israel and from Canaan to gather around the throne of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So that's Joshua. Then we turn the page to the book called Judges. Arguably the most messed up book in the history of mankind. It starts off bad and it ends even worse. There's a verse, it's the theme verse that shows up 4 times in Judges, at the beginning, at the end, and then twice in the middle. And it goes like this. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and the people did that which is right in their own eyes. Okay, people doing that which is right in their own eyes, that's bad. That's like Noah stuff, that's Adam and Eve, that's people removing God from the equation. And it says there's no king in Israel. In other words, we need a king. Really, we need a king of kings, but we need a king who will keep people doing that which is right in God's eyes. But instead, there's no king, and everybody's doing that which is right in their own eyes. And this starts off with a little bit of disobedience as they're supposed to conquer the land, and it gets worse and it gets worse. And by the time we get to the end of Judges, we have gang rape and human sacrificing and human trafficking and genocide and civil war. In fact, we're supposed to be our brother's keeper. They pick one tribe and they actually try to do genocide and wipe out the entire tribe. Brother's keeper, they're brother's murderers. Again, it's just like Joseph's story all over again. That's Judges. It's a mess. During the time of Judges, though, we get this book of Ruth. What's it doing there? Oh, you've probably heard a sermon where it's about dating in the 21st century, right? No, it's not. Let me very quickly give you the story of Ruth. Okay, there's a guy, his name is Elimelech. He is from the family of Judah from a town called Bethlehem. If you've read the Bible before or been listening in this series, both of those are important. Okay, Elimelech is married to this lady Naomi. They have 2 sons. A famine comes, so they leave Judah territory and go over into a Gentile territory, a group of people called the Moabites. Ooh, where have we heard that before? Remember that disgusting story earlier, Genesis 19, Lot and his daughters in the cave in the mountain? Yeah, one of those daughters gave birth to a guy who became the father of the Moabites. So this is suddenly, that horrible story in Genesis 19, it shows that it wasn't just there for no reason. The author is tying it back in because the author is on a mission. So they go over into Moab. The boys marry a couple of locals, Ruth and Orpah. All 3 guys die. Naomi comes back to Bethlehem and she brings Ruth with her, where she is, through a crazy series of events and going to fields and all sorts of stuff, she gets married to a guy named Boaz. Remember him? Yeah, that's Rahab, Jericho. That's him. He is the cousin of Elimelech. He is the kinsman redeemer. Remember that? Judah and his daughters? Yeah, all of a sudden, all these plot lines and all these weird things that are like, what's that about? They're all tying together. Ruth and Boaz get married and they have a son. His name is Obed. Obed has a son. His name is Jesse. Jesse has several sons, one of whom is named David. Hold on to that. That's going to get important real soon. But what this shows is that even though things are going really bad, like in the book of Judges, God is still writing this story. And he's using things like Lot and his daughters and Rahab, the prostitute from Jericho, and all these things to keep the line alive, because God made a promise that your biggest problem, my biggest problem, sin and death, would be solved through the serpent crusher, which is going to come as the offspring of the woman. And we've tracked it so far, and we're going to keep tracking it now through a guy named David. And that's where our episode will go to next.